I have the pleasure of working with people to help them get out of their pain and rehabilitate their injuries. And now that the work's getting out there more and more, I'm having countless conversations with people about how they can sort their own troubles, how they can fix their back pain, how they can fix their shoulder pain, how they can fix their knee pain, their ankle pain, whatever kind of issue that is. But I'm running into a common misconception with the work, and that is that an exercise program is going to be the solution for your problem. And that's not to say that movement and corrective exercise and all those things don't work. They are a major part and a very key element of what I do with people. But we're going to cover the misconception that everything is based in an exercise program, because you can't outwork poor foundations. You can't outwork poor foundations. And your foundations are things that just frankly are not addressed in the conventional system. We don't have a health system, we have a disease maintenance system. I use the analogy of, let's take physios, for example. It's not to say there aren't incredible physios. There's amazing people in every field, but we're just going to go with the standard practitioner here. If I was a financial advisor and my clients kept coming to me year after year after year after year and said that, oh, I'm broke again. All right, next financial year, oh, I'm broke again. Next financial year, oh my God, I'm broke again. I may not be the greatest financial advisor if my clients keep coming back to me with the same issues. So if I'm somebody working in allied health and my patients, my clients keep coming back to me with the same back injury every single year, with the same knee injury every single year, maybe the approach I'm taking isn't working, because there are great people in every field, as we said, but we've separated these medical systems to look at things in isolation and not the total of all of the parts that make up a human being, which is really, really important. There's a crazy stat that I have written down here in my book, and that's that 85% of people who present to doctors with pain don't know the cause of that pain. And that's known as idiopathic in the medical system, of no known origin. There's no event that led to their back pain. They don't know why their shoulder's hurting. They don't know why their knee's hurting. They don't know what's caused their chronic form of pain. And idiopathic is just a fancy word for saying, we've got no idea. We've got no idea. So if somebody is presenting with a symptom, and we're going to talk about back pain today, but these are principles-based thinking that you can actually apply to any injury, to any sickness, to any illness, any ailment in the body. You can begin to apply these principles of thinking to be able to heal yourself. And at least these are going to be some great things that you can start at, rather than, say, rushing through a surgery. I've spoken to so many people with, let's say, disc pathologies. So we said lower back pain is the most common pain throughout the world. Let's say, take something like a disc pathology. So many people that I've spoken to have just been moved down the line quickly to a surgery without touching on these foundations before going there. And it's not to say that the medical system has no place. Please don't confuse my words with that at all. God forbid, if I were to have a car accident tomorrow, probably not going to lather myself in rosemary oil. If you do some damage, you're probably going to want a surgery. Surgery absolutely keeps people alive. But if you go to an orthopedic surgeon, or you go to somebody with surgery in their title, probably better believe that they're going to recommend a surgery as the solution to your issue. So if 85% of people who present with pain are idiopathic, instead of just looking at the symptoms and just treating the back pain, how can we look at the foundations around that to be able to help somebody? And when people come to work with me in my practice, they think they're coming just for an exercise program. They're going to get these releases. We're going to work with the fascia. We're going to work with the posture. We're going to strengthen you in this certain way and this and this and this. You'll get a bunch of exercises that are going to make you better. And when we start with holistic nutrition and lifestyle foundations, sometimes people can get a little bit confused, because they're like, Jake, why are we talking about diet when my back hurts? Why are you talking about identifying my dream when my back hurts? That's not my back. I came to see you for my back. Why are we looking at these things? But we need to understand the principle that all stress in the body summates. So all stress adds up. I'm going to have a little sip of my tea here. What did we run this morning? An organic rooibos. I met a lovely lady the other day who called it, what'd she say? Rooibos. I've always called it rooibos. Who knows? Doesn't change the fact that it's a great tea, and a great mug helps as well. So we need to understand our foundations. We need to understand our foundations. We need to understand the principle that all stress in the body summates. It all adds up. So if I have an acute issue like back pain, that is a stressor. That's a stressor to a tissue. There's inflammation and breakdown to that area. But if I just work with somebody's back, we're not looking at the grand total of stress on somebody's system. And the mainstream approach just fails to understand that. How much sleep is somebody getting? Are they getting 8 hours of sleep every single night? Are they eating a processed diet? Are they eating a whole foods diet, but it's coming from commercial sources that have been sprayed with these pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, all of these things that the body has to detoxify? It places increased stress on the organs of detoxification. So that's something that's starting to raise your stress levels. Let's think of it as a concept. It's called the physiological load. In the medical system, the allostatic load, and that's the grand total of stress on everyone's systems. So take that as a bucket. So I've got back pain, I put that in the bucket, that's a stressor. I'm eating commercially farmed foods with these pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides. I put that in the bucket, that's another stressor. I put a work stress. I actually work in a place that I actually hate. I don't enjoy it at all. That is a major stressor. That's, the majority of people's lives are spent at their workplace. And I would say for most people that I talk to, they don't hate their job, but they don't love it. They don't love it. And there's a very big difference between things being okay and things being very exciting in terms of your work life. Because you spend most of your time at work. So if you spend most of your time in a place that you don't really want to be at, that's a stressor. So you put that into the bucket. You drink tap water. There's a great documentary called Firewater. I harp on about it all the time. They show you what they do to tap water in Australia. It's not medical grade fluoride that they put in the water. It's industrial grade fluoride. That hasn't been tested at all for high levels of heavy metals. The water supply's got pathogens in them. It's got runoff and byproduct of chemical waste, all these different things that go into our tap water. So you drink that. And that's another stress. The organs of detoxification have to work harder and harder and harder because you're drinking this water. We're eating a diet that's void of minerals. We're drinking water that's void of minerals. It's been stripped of the mineral content. So now we don't actually have the means of bringing hydration into our tissues. Mineral content is important in the tissues because it draws water into them. So if we're void of minerals, we're not actually getting the proper hydration. That's another stressor. You take something like back pain or a disc pathology, even at 1% hydration, your discs lose significant height. So the bones get closer together, each vertebra gets closer together, and that increases the stress and mechanical loading on the lower back. Increased stress and mechanical loading causes more inflammation and breakdown. So you've got all these little things that go into the bucket that lead to more and more stresses. We've got exposure to artificial blue light. How many homes have LED downlights now positioned right overhead? You have receptors in your eye that would naturally be detecting the position of the sun in the sky, but are now picking up these LED downlights which don't contain the full spectrum of light frequencies that your body needs. It basically signals to your body that it is midday all the time. And light governs every single system in our body. It governs our digestive rhythms, it governs our sleep-wake rhythms, our hormonal release. Literally everything is programmed by the presence or absence of light. And now that we've separated ourselves from our natural rhythms, we're inside at 9 p.m. with all the lights on. you're looking at your screen, you're looking at your TVs, you are signaling to your body that it is midday. To be able to sleep, we need these two key hormones, cortisol and melatonin. And in the morning, when the sun rises, we naturally get a boost of cortisol. And when cortisol is high, melatonin is low. And as it gets later in the day, the sun starts to set, or cortisol starts to lower, and melatonin starts to rise. And melatonin is what signals to our body that it's time to sleep, it's time to rest, it's time to digest, it's time to repair. And we get our psychological repair and our physiological repair during the evening. But you don't get into that and you disrupt that rhythm when you're exposing yourself to artificial blue light at all hours of the day. So that is another major stressor. So we're taking all of these things that aren't necessarily based in movement, because people connect their pain to their movement. And it's right to an extent. If you're sitting down at your desk all day, that's not going to do wonders for your back. But that's not the primary cause. That's not the root cause that's driving your issues. So one of the first things I do when I work with people is screen them holistically for their entire nutrition and lifestyle habits. We look through absolutely everything. We look through everything. Because I can't begin to consider your symptom and get to the root cause of that issue if we don't first consider things in their totality. You are like a plant. You can think about this. This is a great concept. You are like a plant. If you have a plant and the leaves start falling off it, that plant starts dying. Do you take the leaf of that plant and pick it up off the floor and sticky tape it back onto the stem? That's actually a freaking stupid idea. But basically, that's kind of what surgery is, to an extent. It's taking that leaf up off the floor and sticky taping it back onto the stem and going, sorted, it's all good, you're covered. But if you were to look at that plant and you were to see it dying, you were seeing it that it's in an environment that it's not thriving. If your plant was dying, you'd ask, okay, am I giving it enough water? Is it getting enough water? Is it getting enough sunlight? Is it in the right soil? Do I need to give the soil more nutrients to be able to feed that plant? Is that plant's pot too small? Am I constricting it? Is it time for a bigger pot? Is that plant planted in a bed with other plants that don't facilitate its growth? You would begin to ask all of these questions. But we don't apply that same principles-based thinking when it comes to the human body. So many people are trying to chase quick fixes. They come to me for an exercise program, they go to their practitioners, they go to their physios, chiros, osteos, their doctors, all these people for a fix. It's like, I've got this pain, give me this. I want this for that. And it's not that. You need to put the lens back onto yourself, and we need to look at the foundations. And the foundations, you take a great book, How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy by Chek, and this is absolute gold in a book. It is gold in a book. It's simple enough, and it's got illustrations and drawings in here that children can understand, and it's got things that you could study if you're a doctor in this book. It is an incredible book. But Chek talks about the 6 foundation health principles. And those are sleep, nutrition, hydration, thinking, breathing, and movement. So if you look at yourself in that regard, if you're somebody with back pain and you start to look at your sleep, am I getting 8 hours of sleep every night? Well, if not, well, then I'm robbing myself of the chance to physiologically repair my body, to be able to repair the breakdown that's occurring in that lumbar spine. Let's say for a disc pathology at the disc. If I am not drinking enough water, so you said The Body's Many Cries for Water, great book. I think it's Dr. Batman-Gelage talks about, even at 1% dehydration, you'll significantly lose disc height. That increases the pressure on the discs and increases the mechanical loading and pressure and force that goes through that lumbar spine. Are you getting enough minerals in your water? Are you adding a little bit of Celtic sea salt to bring in that hydration into the tissue? What's your thinking like? Are you chronically stressed all the time? Are you constantly caught in your head? If you are, that's going to increase cortisol. Increased cortisol exposure over time for chronic periods breaks down connective tissue. So you're damaging the disc even more. You're starting to break down that disc even more. Are you eating foods that stress your digestive organs? Are you eating these foods that are sprayed with pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, all the things that I bang on about, that place stress on those organs? And when the organs are stressed, they need to expand because they're inflamed. And what happens then is the body shuts down your core muscles because the organ needs to expand. And if the core held its tension, well, then that organ would compress against the core and the abdominal wall, and you'd get even more issues. So you shut down your core function. So the organ expands, and if you lose proper core function, you lose the ability to stabilize the spine effectively. So now you're moving around in the day, and you don't injure a place through too little movement, you injure an area through too much movement. So joints don't like shear, torque, and compression. So because the core's shutting down, you can't effectively stabilize your lumbar spine, you're causing all this breakdown again. And because you don't get enough sleep, you don't get the chance to repair properly. Because you don't eat the right diet, you don't give yourself the raw materials to be able to heal that tissue. Because you're chronically stressed and in your head all the time, your cortisol's high, so your rate of breakdown is exceeding your ability to be able to recover. And that's where the pain teacher shows up. And that's a concept Paul developed about the pain teacher appears in our life to show us that the things that we're currently doing aren't serving us, and that we need to look at ourselves and assess where we need to change and where we need to shift. If I have back pain, instead of asking what can I do for my back pain, I should ask why has this happened? And what can I do in my life to shift things? And what do we do with the pain teacher? We numb it. We just numb those signals. We take painkillers, we take medications, all sorts of these things. And those oftentimes have more knock-on side effects. So now you've got another increase in that bucket of overall stress. And as the bucket gets fuller and fuller and fuller, your ability to live a healthy and vital life diminishes. So when you begin to use these concepts, you can start to see that you could make changes in all these areas and you would improve your body's ability to be able to heal, which I would actually like to know that information before I got rushed through a surgery or before I got suggested a method or a pathway that didn't really align with myself. You know, 'cause surgery is a nice word. You're literally cutting people open. You're cutting people open and breaking stuff down and sewing or bolting shit back together in your body. And once again, I understand that is an amazing process. I'm not a surgeon. I didn't study for 12 years on how to do a heart surgery. What an amazing piece of human brilliance. Like unreal. But as said, I had a heart surgery when I was 21. Not one person asked me about my breathing pattern. Not one person asked me about my sleep. Not one person asked me about my diet. Not one person asked me about my stress levels during that time. Not one person assessed my movement, my posture, all these different things. That if you actually assessed, you would find a lot of things that you could shift. 90% of all modern illness and disease are caused by nutrition and lifestyle factors. So if you're trying to get out of your pain with an exercise program, shift your thinking to those 6 foundation health principles: sleep, nutrition, hydration, thinking, breathing, and movement. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't need an expert for that stuff. We're in the age of information. Information is everywhere. I'm sure you can think of that when you're listening to sleep, nutrition, hydration, thinking, breathing, and movement. You can think of areas where you're insufficient. And you could make small changes, the little 1%ers that would shift you every single day in those areas that would lead you to living a more happy, healthy, and vital life that's pain-free, free of disease, free of injury. So change that way of thinking. If you're somebody who's gone to a physio over and over and over again and keeps having the same problems all the time, look at your holistic nutrition and lifestyle foundations. And once again, it's not to say that the movement isn't important. It's a major part of the work that I do. But you can't out-exercise poor holistic nutrition and lifestyle foundations. You can't do it. And until you're willing to make the change there, then you're not going to get out of your injury, you're not going to get out of your pain. And I'll finish there with a quote from Hippocrates. If someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he is ready to do away with the reason for his illness. Only then is it possible to help him. Again, if someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he is ready to go away with the reasons for his illness. Only then is it possible to help him. So ask yourself that question: am I willing to change? Am I willing to do and shift the things that have brought this onto me? Because it's not a coincidence, it's not random that you have an injury or that you have a pain. If it's not acute, if you get hit by a car, there's obviously a reason for your injury. Yeah? If you fall down a flight of stairs, there's obviously a reason for your injury. But if you've got that idiopathic pain, which so many people have, they don't know how it came about, you don't need an exercise program, you need to start looking at your foundations.